Right now, with what the GM plant closure means for his state in Ohio, is Senator Rob Portman. And Senator, thanks for being here today.
Hey, Becky, thanks for having me on.
Why don't you tell us what you think about it all?
Well, it's deeply frustrating. This is a plant that has been doing a great job for General Motors. I was there back in the day when the Cruze was first introduced and when it was selling like hotcakes and when that plant was making concessions, including the UAW, to bring that product in. General Motors made about a $500 million investment, by the way, in the plant at that time. And yeah, the Chevy Cruze isn't selling as well, so let's bring a new product in. And we've got a great plant, great workforce, the community is strongly supportive. And that's what I've been pushing, not just for the past several days, but really for the past several months, as General Motors has talked about downsizing. They've actually taken that plant already down to one shift, so 1,500 workers left. And now they're making an announcement for next year to eliminate it altogether. And what we want is a new product and the opportunity to, again, show off our Ohio workforce and be able to be part of the General Motors future.
Senator, we spoke with someone who's covered GM for the last 12 years and pointed out that plant in Lordstown, the problem with it is it's an older facility, it's a smaller facility, and it would be very expensive and difficult to retrofit it for a new vehicle. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions, as you can imagine, with General Motors about this point, and the concern they've had isn't the size of the plant, it's the fact that the line itself is made for a small vehicle. Although the line is less of a problem than the paint booth, and now we have this opportunity over the next 5 years, General Motors is saying, for 20 new electric vehicle models. This is 20 new cars. One of those cars certainly will be small enough to fit into the same frame that we have now for the Cruze. It's called a Delta frame, and we think it's perfect for the smaller electric cars that are likely to come along. So we're going to fight for it, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure that General Motors makes the decision to continue to invest in Ohio. Ohio's been good to General Motors, and General Motors ought to stay in Ohio.
As you mentioned, you've had a lot of conversations with them. Have they told you anything that would lead you to think that they may be leaning towards something like that?
Well, they are not making decisions right now about the production of these electric vehicles in the future. I think they're planning on 2 in the next 18 months, but again, then 20 in the next 5 years. And so we want to be sure that we put our best foot forward and that the workers at Lordstown, who have proven themselves time and time again, have the opportunity to once again show what they can do.
Senator, we were having, and you were having a calm, collected, and very civil conversation about this topic. The president has spoken out in a much more vociferous way against the CEO of GM personally and the company. And has begun to threaten the company and certain subsidies that have been made to it. Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, first, let me say the new tax bill helps GM a lot to stay in Lordstown. So there's been some confusion about that. The new tax bill lowers our corporate rate. It also provides an incentive to invest in plants like the one in Lordstown by having immediate expensing. So it's actually much more likely that they would invest in the United States, and I would hope in Ohio, than anywhere else, including in Mexico, where, by the way, there's a 30% corporate tax, and they don't get the same ability to write off their investment. So the new tax bill should be something that General Motors looks at positively, which they do, and one that they would use to invest in Lordstown. With regard to the subsidy, the electric vehicle subsidy, it's correct that there is a subsidy now to the consumer if you buy an electric vehicle, but there's a cap per manufacturer, as was talked about earlier. And ironically, General Motors is about to hit that cap, so there's not a whole lot of subsidy there for them. We could change that law. I don't think we're going to do it in the lame duck session of Congress.
Senator, in general, it's a bad idea for governments to say, keep something open for employment. That's how they do it in Europe. They worry more about employees and then the companies go out of business and there's no employees left. So, I mean, sometimes, you know as well as anyone about there's winners and losers in capitalism. And if they've got these plants, when they're turning out stuff that can't be retrofitted, that any normal person running the company would say, this needs to be closed down or we're going to end up where we were in 2008 again. No one wants them to end up there again. So if this, I see China keeping plants open to keep capacity going. And that's not the way a capitalistic system works, and it looks like crony capitalism. Is that fair to say that for you as a Republican? Or?
That's certainly not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is what I said earlier.
Seems to be, to some extent.
Well, yeah, but look, they're going to make a decision based on what's best for them. And I hope that's for all their stakeholders, including their
I wish
workers.
there was middle ground where
I think there is. I think there absolutely is. I think. Look, they've made a $500 million investment in this plant recently for the Cruze. The line is actually a modern line because it was made for the Chevy Cruze. It's not selling as well as it used to be. By the way, when it was selling well, they loved the plant. Okay, and the UAW made concessions to attract that product. All we're saying is, we have proven ourselves time and time again. Let's put the new product in Lordstown. The community is willing to step forward and be helpful. Everyone in the state wants to be helpful. I think there's a way forward here, and that is if they're going to produce these new electric vehicles, some of them are going to be smaller cars that fit perfectly in the Lordstown frame, as we talked about. Let's put it in Lordstown.
Would you be supportive if the UAW decides to hold GM up? Would you be supportive of the union or the company?
What do you mean, hold them up? I've been working closely with management and the union has been very responsible in this case, Joe. In fact, what they've done is made concessions to attract General Motors there in the first place, and they're willing to continue to work on that.
As you know, in this coming summer, this is all. What they're proposing technically is not allowed under the current UAW contract. Therefore, this is all going to get negotiated. And what I'm asking is, the UAW could try to, quote unquote, hold them up if they wanted to. And what I'm asking you is, which side of this you ultimately would support?
Yeah, I mean, I would support the contract if there is provisions in the contract that make it more difficult for General Motors to leave Lordstown. I hope they will consider that, because that would be legally binding on them. So look, this is the opportunity we have. We have a great plant there. We have a relatively modern line that's ready to go. We're shifting to new products. I understand that. That's what the market dictates. Let's be sure that Lordstown has a shot at that. And in fact, if they do choose Lordstown, I know it's going to be successful. Why? Because the workforce has proven that in the past. The community is totally supportive. We, as federal and state and local lawmakers, are all interested in being helpful. So I think there's a recipe here for success.
Hey, Senator, now it's Joe again. Do you think all subsidies should go for these? I mean, should the government be in the business of deciding who the winners are going to be in the future in terms of whether big cars, small cars, electric cars, hybrid cars? I mean, if you take it away from GM, maybe you just ought to take it away from everyone and let the marketplace decide what people want to drive.
Yeah, this is what I think. I think that electric cars are part of our future, as well as other technologies, and I think we got to invest in that. And the way to invest in it is to do it through basic research, to provide the appropriate subsidies to be able to get that research up and going. If you don't do that, Joe, here's what happens. China, as an example, has decided to corner the market on electric cars, just as they tried to do on steel. You know, they 15 years ago had 15% of the world's steel production. Now they have half of it, and they don't need it, so they ship it all over the place, including transshipping it to us. They're doing it with electric cars now. More than half the electric cars that are being driven around the world now are made where? In China. So we got to be sure to stay ahead of that, and I think that is part of keeping America competitive, and the government does have a role to play there. But I think it's more in the role of being sure that the basic research dollars are there, that we are investing in innovation and invention in this country to be sure we're not left behind. And I think that's an important part of GM's future. And really, it's about manufacturing here in America. So there are other companies that are doing it as well, including Ford, including Honda, including Toyota, and others that are invested here in America.
Senator Portman, always good to see you. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Great to have you on. Thanks, Mike.